Hello and welcome to India Business Hour. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines that we're tracking for you this evening. India and the US complete negotiations on a mini trade deal and a final decision is likely in the next 24 to 48 hours. President Trump promises tariff letters to nations starting today. The White House delays the deadline for additional tariffs from the 9th of July to the 1st of August. President Trump threatens BRIC nations with an additional 10% tariffs as leaders meet in Brazil, also warns countries aligning with what he calls anti-American policies. BRICS issue a joint statement against trade restrictions without naming the US. Defense expenditure as a share of GDP will rise from 1.9% to 2.5% in the next 5 years, says the Defense Secretary R.K. Singh. A new contract to develop a medium combat aircraft will be awarded in 3 to 6 months. That's an exclusive. French IT services major Capgemini set to acquire India-based WNS for $3.3 billion as it aims to bolster its artificial intelligence offerings. The combined annual revenue of both companies is more than $23 billion. Days after the crackdown on Jane Street, market regulator SEBI is upgrading surveillance to curb manipulation in derivatives, says SEBI Chief Tuhin Kanta Pandey. Adds there may not be many more such cases. Opposition leader Rahul Gandhi asks why SEBI remains silent for so long. Jio BlackRock Asset Management raises 17,800 crore rupees from its debut NewFundOffer. Over 90 institutional investors and 67,000 retail investors participate. Prime Minister Modi cautions against weaponization of critical minerals at the BRICS summit. A veiled reference to China's curbs on rare earth exports, says critical resources must not be used solely for the interests of any one country. The Supreme Court agrees to hear a clutch of petitions opposing the Election Commission's voter roll verification in Bihar. Nearly 3 crore voters need to produce documents to establish the date and place of their birth. Association for Democratic Reforms claims lakh of voters could be excluded. President Trump says Elon Musk has gone off the rails, calls him a train wreck. This after Musk's decision to start and bankroll a new political party as a third alternative in the US. The United Arab Emirates rolls out a lifetime residency policy for a one-time fee of 23 lakhs. Over 5,000 Indians are expected to apply for the new Golden Visa in the first 3 months. Well, let's go straight to the top story this evening. The clock is ticking. A final decision on a mini trade deal between India and the US is imminent. Now, sources say the Indian government has refused to offer any further concessions on sensitive sectors like agriculture and dairy. But they also add that India has put forward, quote unquote, a fair proposal, which is aimed at supporting labour-intensive industries. Now, the average tariff rate under the deal is likely to be around 10%. Remember, 10% Trump has promised will be the standard tariff for everybody. Meanwhile, the White House has delayed the imposition of the so-called reciprocal tariffs from the 9th of July, which was the earlier deadline, now to the 1st of August. President Trump has promised to send letters on deals and tariffs to several nations starting today. So far, the US has only signed a trade agreement with the UK. It's announced a deal with Vietnam. President Trump has also threatened the BRICS nations with an additional 10% tariffs. Trump has said any country aligning with what he called, and I quote, anti-American policies of the BRICS will also face additional tariffs. Now, Prime Minister Modi is attending the BRICS summit in Brazil. China's Xi Jinping and Russia's Putin are not attending the summit in person. In a joint statement, the BRICS bloc termed the rise of unilateral tariff and non-tariff measures as a serious concern, but stopped short of naming the US. Here's President Trump and his top cabinet officials on the tariff letters and what we can expect.
Sending letters out on Monday having to do with the trade deals. Could be 12, maybe 15. You know, Secretary of Commerce right here. And I guess, Howard, I would say it could be maybe as many as 15 or so. And they'll be going out on Monday, and some will go out on Tuesday and Wednesday, and we've made deals also. So we're going to have a combination of letters, and some deals have been made.
But they go into effect on August 1st. The tariffs go into effect August 1st, but the president is setting the rates and the deals right now. Well, the president is right in the midst of discussing all sorts of deals with all sorts of countries, and the gentleman to my right is going to decide and I'm going to be with him when he makes that decision.
Yesterday, you said by Wednesday, we might have a couple of more deals to announce. I know it's Monday, it's not even 9 o'clock yet. Can you give us any idea whether that's likely? Is India, is that in the mix? Can you break any news for us here that something's going to happen in the next 48 hours?
Yeah, we are going to have several announcements in the next 48 hours. And, Joe, I think what President Trump is concerned about is the quality of the deals, not the quantity. As you could imagine, as he started herding the cats and trying to get everyone across the finish line.
Well, we are trying to create a trading environment and trading arrangements and agreements which will help two-way trade. Our handicrafts, our handlooms, our various agri-products from here will also get a market worldwide. So it's always a benefit on both sides that is being balanced in a free trade agreement. After all, there are lakhs of handloom and handicraft persons here also. So we will be balancing everybody's interests when we are looking at free trade agreement.
Well, that's the Commerce Minister. Parikshit Luthra is standing by now with more into what the India-US mini-trade deal could entail. Parikshit, what we know for a fact is that the negotiations are done, at least for the first installment of the India-US FTA. The question now is, are we going to get a letter announcing the deal by President Trump?
Well, we just heard Scott Bessent a short while back, and he told CNBC that it's been a busy last few days. In fact, his mailbox is full of requests. So over the next 24 to 48 hours, we're expecting a lot of announcements from the White House, and possibly there will be letters going to India as well. From its part, the Indian government sources tell us that the negotiations are over. We've done the best we could. We gave them the best deal proposal. We want to protect the interests of our SMEs, MSMEs and labor-intensive sectors. There are red lines on agriculture, wheat, rice, maize and dairy, which we cannot cross. In these circumstances, whatever we could do, we have done. Let's see if US President Donald Trump accepts the deal or not. If this deal goes through, there's going to be a mix of both quotas and tariffs. Some products could be subject to quotas. We're also learning that India may get a good amount of access for certain high technology products, which will help sectors like AI, quantum computing, also the semiconductor industry. So the next couple of hours are going to be crucial. But what Trump has said about imposing tariffs on countries aligned with anti-America policies of BRICS, we spoke to sources in the government about that. They said there was nothing anti-America at this year's BRICS summit. In fact, there was no talk on having a separate BRICS currency at all. So they are absolutely sure that this threat of BRICS tariffs will not go through.
Yes, whether it's a threat or President Trump will follow through is the big question. Parikshit, the clock is ticking. We are standing by. Many thanks for joining us. So is India Inc. It's hoping for a trade deal with the US. The president of industry body CII, Rajiv Memani, says free trade deals cannot please every industry, but he's hoping for a deal with the US before the higher tariffs kick in.
I think, FTAs are a negotiation. So I don't think every industry is going to be supremely happy about the FTAs. And in particular, I would say, and as far as EVs are concerned, I think the most important FTA, to be direct, is US. And I do hope that it gets signed on time, because if we talk to the members of CII, they don't want the 25% tariff to kick in on 8th of July or whenever.
Will a deal get done between India and the US? That's the big question. And of course, stay tuned to CNBC TV 18. We're tracking that story very closely. A quick update from the BRICS summit in Brazil that we were talking about. Addressing the summit, Prime Minister Modi cautioned against weaponization of critical minerals in a veiled reference to China amidst Beijing's curbs on rare earth exports. The Prime Minister also said that critical resources must not be used solely for the interests of any one country. Now on to the day's market action. Markets ended flat after a range-bound session. The Nifty holding on to levels above the 25,400 mark. FMCG companies closed largely in the green, with 4 out of 6 firms contributing to the Nifty. So a flat market today. The exception really was the FMCG stocks. That's the picture playing out. FMCG up by about 1.5%. The rest of the market fairly flat for the day. Just days after the crackdown on Jane Street, market regulator SEBI is upgrading surveillance to curb manipulation in the derivatives market. And that's the word coming in from SEBI Chief Tuhinkanta Pandey, who was speaking at an event at the NSE. When asked specifically about Jane Street, Pandey said, and I quote, "There may not be many more such cases." Here's the SEBI chief.
So can you confirm if anybody else will also be investigated about Jane Street on the allegation?
Please, really.
Any other entities?
नहीं वो तो I've said yesterday also I've said that we are watching it is basically surveillance issue and obviously surveillance at both at the exchange level and SEBI level will continue and will also we will also upgrade those surveillance measures and I don't think there are very many other risks which you are posing.
Well, that's the SEBI chief. And staying with Jane Street, the leader of the opposition in the Lok Sabha, Rahul Gandhi, has questioned SEBI over the Jane Street order. Citing his statement about retail investors losing money in the F&O market, Rahul Gandhi said, and I quote, "I had clearly said in 2024 that the F&O market had become a game of big players and small investors are being continuously fleeced." Now SEBI itself is admitting that Jane Street committed manipulation of thousands of crores. Why did SEBI remain silent for so long? At whose behest did the government turn a blind eye? And how many big sharks are still shorting retail investors? End of quote. That is Rahul Gandhi. Day one of Travel Food Services' initial public offer saw a 10% subscription. Retail investors' portion has been subscribed 14%, followed by the qualified institutional buyers' subscription at 7%. The company's IPO is entirely an offer for sale of shares worth 2,000 crore rupees by the promoter. The company operates the travel quick service restaurant and lounge business across airports in India and Malaysia. Jio BlackRock Asset Management has raised nearly 18,000 crore rupees in its debut NewFundOffer. The three-day NFO included 3 open-ended debt schemes, liquid money market and overnight fund. The offering saw participation from over 90 institutional investors and 67,000 retail investors. With this, Jio BlackRock ranks among the top 15 AMCs in India by debt assets under management. It's a setback for Turkey-based Celebi Aviation. The Delhi High Court has dismissed the company's plea challenging the revocation of its security clearance. Remember, the Indian government had revoked the company's security clearance to handle ground and cargo operations at the airports after Operation Sindoor. Here's a CNBC TV18 exclusive. The Defence Secretary R.K. Singh has said that defence expenditure as a share of GDP will rise from 1.9% to 2.5% in the next 5 years. Speaking to CNBC TV18, Singh also said that a new contract to develop a medium combat aircraft will be awarded in the next 3 to 6 months. Take a look.
For the 5-year cycle of the 16th Finance Commission, we are going to be seeking additional allocation to the extent that our defense share in the GDP goes up from the current figure of about 1.9 to about 2.5. But that is a sort of broader, longer term or rather medium term sort of request that we intend to make.
Indian military attaché in Indonesia had indicated we lost fighters in the conflict with Pakistan in the initial phase. The Indian military attaché in Indonesia went on to say that there was a decision not to strike Pakistan's air defences, as this was not an operation against the Pak army but only against terrorists. Would you confirm that, and also how many fighters we may have lost in that exercise, because there have been inferences about Rafale fighters being lost?
Of course, I'm not going to talk about individual platforms, and you use Rafales in the plural. I can assure you that that's absolutely not correct. This business of counting our losses is an absurdity. I don't see the Pakistanis counting their losses and blasting it over the airwaves.
Well, that's the Defence Secretary on the defence expenditure rising to 2.5% of GDP in the next 5 years and defence contracts being awarded across the 3 services. In a bid to bolster its artificial intelligence offerings, French IT services company Capgemini will acquire India-based WNS for $3.3 billion. Rima standing by with more. Rima, take us through what this deal means and how it's likely to benefit Capgemini. It's a large deal in the IT space.
Thanks so much for that. This is indeed the big deal in the global BPO space, a segment which is getting rapidly disrupted on the back of AI. You spoke about the combined weight, the behemoth of Capgemini and WNS, but also this acquisition for Capgemini is going to be operating margin leverage. Let's just quickly break up the numbers. So WNS's revenues last year were about 1.2 billion euros. Capgemini was at 22.1 billion euros. So combined, we're looking at a company with a top line of 23.3 billion euros with operating margins of 13.6%. But this acquisition, as I said, will also boost Capgemini's EPS. So just immediately, EPS goes up by 4%. But when you account for the revenue synergies and the cost synergies, then the EPS benefit will be to the tune of 7% by 2027. So the revenue synergies are estimated to be about 100 to 140 million pounds, while the cost synergies are anticipated to be about 50 to 70 million pounds. UBS had written a note in May, on the 2nd of May, that's last month, because there was a lot of speculation about whether Capgemini will acquire WNS. And they're saying that while AI poses a structural headwind to much of the BPO landscape, WNS enjoys vertical process experience. If Capgemini manages to leverage its technology to drive automation, it could emerge as the successful provider in next-gen BPO. So basically, what WNS brings to the table is vertical depth across many key industries. They've got long-term contracts, recurring revenue growth. They've enjoyed about a 9% kind of a revenue growth over the last 3 fiscal years. So basically, it's a blend of WNS's domain-rich BPO capabilities with Capgemini's AI-led automation. And the question is, when you bring the two together, can this be a defining moment for Capgemini?
All right, Rima, many thanks. In international news, over 80 people, including 28 children, have died in flash floods in central Texas. Rescue operations are underway as dozens are still missing. Authorities indicate that the death toll is expected to rise. The unexpected flash floods were triggered by torrential rain along the Guadalupe River, which rose 26 feet in just 45 minutes. President Trump has said he may visit the state on Friday. Israel has launched strikes on 3 ports and a power plant in Houthi-controlled areas of Yemen. The Israeli Air Force said the latest strikes on Yemen's ports were in response to the Houthi rebels' repeated attacks on Israel and its citizens. Israel Army has also intensified airstrikes across Gaza City, killing at least 14 people just today. President Trump will host Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu in Washington. The U.S. president has said that the meeting will include talks on a permanent deal with Iran. This comes as Israel and Hamas resume indirect talks on a ceasefire in Gaza after months of heavy Israeli military action. The Israel Prime Minister said talks could help finalize a Gaza ceasefire and secure the release of hostages as well. Ukraine has withdrawn from the Ottawa Convention banning anti-personnel mines, citing urgent military needs amidst grinding war with Russia. Kyiv made the move as it struggles to secure U.S. military aid and frontline troops. Ukrainian commanders and analysts say the mines could help slow Russian advance, especially as Moscow reportedly uses them extensively. Russia is not a party to the treaty and denies deploying such weapons. President Trump has said that Elon Musk has gone off the rails. This after the tech billionaire said he will start and bankroll a new political party. In a post on Truth Social, Trump has called the Tesla chief a train wreck for suggesting a third alternative political party in the U.S. Tesla shares down in early trade after Musk announced the formation of a new political party. So battle lines being drawn once again between President Trump and Elon Musk. Now, the United Arab Emirates has introduced a nomination-based golden visa for Indian citizens, offering lifetime residency for a one-time fee of approximately, and here's the catch, just 23 lakh rupees. Now, earlier, pathways required a minimum investment of 5 crores in real estate or a business commitment. Shivani is here with more on UAE's new golden visa and why it has people excited. Shivani.
Well, yes, the UAE has rolled out the refreshed golden visa scheme for Indians, slashing costs and widening eligibility in a move that builds on the India-UAE Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, or the CEPA. Now, signed in 2022, SEPA aims to deepen trade, investment and mobility between the two countries. And this latest Golden Visa reform is a big step in that direction. Indians can now apply for lifetime UAE residency by paying a one-time fee of 1 lakh dirhams, roughly around 23.3 lakh Indian rupees, without needing to buy any property or start a business, which were mandatory under the earlier route. This is a major shift from the existing criteria that demanded around 2 million dirhams, which is around 4.6 crore plus, in property or business investments to qualify for the Golden Visa. This time, the visa has been opened up beyond high net worth investors and individuals, now available to professionals like teachers, nurses, scientists, digital creators, e-sport players as well too, rather than just HNIs and business owners. Applications can be filed directly from India through designated centers or online portals, and candidates will be assessed on professional credentials, clean background and potential contribution to the UAE's economy and culture. Now, experts believe that over 5,000 Indians are expected to apply in just the first 3 months, which is the pilot phase, with more than 4 million Indians already living in UAE. This opens new pathways for tax-free income, business opportunities and full family sponsorship as well, including children, parents and domestic staff. Back to you.
All right, Shivani, many thanks. That is the new Golden Visa from the UAE at 23 lakh rupees, which opens the doors for professionals from India. Up next on India Business Hour, the Labubu craze. We'll tell you what that is and why it's taken the world by storm. How did these dolls become so popular? That's coming up. And catch all of CNBC TV 18's news and updates on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, X, Jio, Hotstar. Catch us on CNBC TV 18 Access and CNBC TV 18 Prime. Torrential rainfall and flooding have killed at least 78 people in Himachal Pradesh. The Met Department has forecast very heavy rains with thunderstorms and lightning across the state. The Chief Minister said the state has incurred losses of up to 700 crore rupees. Rescue and relief operations are currently underway. Now, the Election Commission's electoral roll revision drive in Bihar ahead of the state polls has triggered a controversy. RJD MP Manoj Jha, TMC MP Mahua Moitra and NGOs have moved the Supreme Court against the move, alleging that it may disenfranchise close to 3 crore voters. The court has agreed to hear the matter on Thursday. Ashmit joins us now to take us through what the pleas are asking for. Ashmit.
Well, the Supreme Court agreeing to hear a batch of applications filed by political parties like the RJD, the TMC, by NGOs like the Association for Democratic Reforms. The core concern that they've raised is the constitutionality of the special intensive revision order that has been passed by the Election Commission for verification of electoral rolls. Now, bear in mind, this SIR exercise has been done previously as well, now being announced. The concern that has been raised is the intensive manner in which it is being done under very compressed timelines. The Bihar elections are not very far away. The petitioner's estimates is due to be held in November of 2025, later this year. And therefore, this window makes it very, very likely that there are lakhs and crores of people who are likely to be disenfranchised and their right to vote is likely to be taken away. The figure that this petition puts forth is that as many as 3 crore workers who are working out of the state of Bihar could possibly get affected due to this SIR order. Now, under this SIR order, there is a requirement for people to go to the booth level officer and then subsequently establish their citizenship by proving their date and place of birth, and not only themselves but also their parents. Now, this is something which is argued to be arbitrary, to be unconstitutional, to be violative of multiple rights. The petition essentially argues is that this will unduly affect, disproportionately affect the marginalized and the poor community, that there are lakhs and crores that could get affected. In fact, just this morning, we had senior advocates Kapil Sibal as well as Abhishek Manu Singhvi address these concerns before the Apex Court. The Supreme Court, for now, not passing any orders, not issuing notice, but nonetheless has agreed to hear this case. The Apex Court will take up this case on July 10th.
Ashmit, many thanks for joining us. Well, on a separate note, it's fluffy, it's mischievous looking, it has fangs. We're talking about Labubu dolls. These are dolls that are a global phenomena. Kids and adults alike are going gaga over them. Kiran Khatri reports that what began as a worldwide mania has now become an obsession for many and started a collectible craze where big bucks are involved. Take a look.
Meet Labubu. This small stuffed monster its Chinese manufacturer BlackRock says is inspired by Nordic mythology. It's kind-hearted and always wants to help, but often achieves the opposite. It's the latest craze that's taking the world by a storm. The Labubu is not exactly new. Hong Kong-based artist Ka Sing Lung created her in a picture book series about a decade ago. In 2019, Chinese toy manufacturer Pop Mart started selling Labubus as figurines. For nearly 5 years, it was just another stuffed toy, till inspiration struck. Apart from unique designs for the toy, Pop Mart came up with a unique sales strategy, the blind unboxing. The idea is simple. You order a Labubu and you get a box with a figurine in it, but you don't know which one it is. The box comes with 6 designs on it, so it could be any one of these, or it could be a secret Labubu. Buyers have a 1 in 72 chance of getting the secret one. It tickled the fancy of adults and kids alike.
People tend to go keep buying in the anticipation of acquiring the secret element. So it's, of course, the element of the unknown, the dopamine rush of the whole unboxing experience is what matters.
It became a full-blown craze in 2024 when K-pop group Blackpink's Lisa shared a picture with her Labubu. Soon, celebrities like Rihanna, Dua Lipa and David Beckham were also spotted flaunting their Labubu charms on their luxury bags. So from just another stuffed toy, it became a fashion accessory and a mainstream pop culture fixture. Suddenly, it's everywhere. It's now become a collector's item. In a box store which sells Labubus in India says it's now merely impossible to get Labubus directly from Pop Mart's official channels because of the high demand and limited edition launches. This has pushed prices through the roof with resale price up to 7 to 8 times the original price.
Now this right here is a Singapore country specific. It's like the Merlion one. This one, when it initially came out, was I think around 6,000, 6 or 7, and I think the current price is around 30. I mean, I saw this website that had the secret edition for like 48,000, and that's insane. That's an insane price to have.
Indian streetwear aggregators like Crep Dog Crew, who sell Labubus among other collectibles, say it has helped boost revenue and a lot more.
I would say the collectible section is our fastest growing category. Labubu has been a clear driver of this segment. It's also what we call a gateway product. People come in for a Labubu and end up exploring more from our world. So even beyond direct revenue, it's boosted engagement, footfall and basket size, improving for us.
For manufacturer Pop Mart, the Labubu has been more than a lucky charm. Driven by Labubu's popularity, Pop Mart now commands a market capitalization of a whopping $44 billion, with share prices surging over 180% so far this year. The frenzy has also propelled CEO Wang Ning to a spot among the top 10 Chinese billionaires. And if this trend continues, then your first or next Labubu may not even be available for a song. Even this one. In New Delhi, Kiran Khatri.
Well, beauty does lie in the eye of the beholder. That's the Labubu craze for you. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of India Business Hour. Thanks very much for watching. The news will continue right here on CNBC TV 18. Remember, we're all counting down to hear from President Trump and his administration on the letters, the promised letters that will announce tariffs and possibly trade deals. So, of course, stay tuned to CNBC TV 18. We'll be covering all the action right here. From all of us, goodbye. Thanks for watching.